And we are live. A pleasant good evening to everyone, all of you in the social media land. I greet all of you in the wonderful name of Jesus this afternoon. And we are here live in our Man Up Network session. And I have with me a very dear brother. Matter of fact, he have graced platform some few months ago. And he's none other than Dr. Leonardo Calmer, all the way from Eleuthera, Bahamas. My friend and brother, I think I've known him for somewhat. It's been so it might have been close to 20 or perhaps maybe 20 plus years from Texas days. God bless you and thank you for accepting our invitation one more time to this Man Up Networking session. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Pastor Bastian, Jason. We are so appreciative of the invitation, and it has been a bit more than 20-something years.
We can't let them know our age.
Right. They tell me I, when I tell them my age, they don't believe it. I say, I ain't 30 no more.
No. I just joined the 50 plus club a few weeks ago.
Right. And I'm 1 year away from that. One year away from that.
Glory. God is keeping us.
My birthday next year is going to make me 50.
Wow. You're not too far behind.
Yeah.
This afternoon, I want to welcome all of you once again to our Man Up session. And those of you who are joining, I see a few persons logging in. I'm with my dear friend and brother, Dr. Leonardo Calmer, all the way from Eleuthera, Bahamas. Those of you who know me, that's my original home. I'm here. I migrated here in Ontario, Canada, but that's where I was born and raised. And this afternoon, we're going to address the elephant in the room. This afternoon, we're going to be talking about prostate cancer.
Wow.
And Doc, a few weeks ago, I spoke to one of the survivors of prostate cancer, a dear friend of mine, and we had an hour or two discussion on this matter. And he told me something that was so interesting. He told me that, you know what, we as men, a lot of men feel intimidated and they feel some kind of way to discuss this topic simply because, no one have never really informed them that prevention is better than cure. To address this issue before it gets out of hand. But this afternoon, we're going to address, like I said earlier, the elephant in the room. And perhaps this will be a very informative and empowering session for many men that will come and join us this evening. And most of all, I'm praying this afternoon that will bring change and transformation as they look at this issue from a different perspective.
Yes.
So without any further ado, let's go into some of the discussion this afternoon. First of all, Doctor, can you explain to our listening audience what is prostate cancer?
Thank you so much again for Pastor Bastian for having us on, and thank you to the listening audience, those that are near and far, and those that will be hearing this for posterity's sake. Kind of simple. Prostate cancer essentially is cancer of the prostate, and it's relegated only to men. Although I've been hearing some different things about male versus female in the last couple of months, in as much as we understand, only men can have it. And so it is a cancer of the prostatic area, which is an area that is just snugged between the bladder and the outside of the private part of the body. And that area is specific for a couple of reasons. So cancer essentially is simply defined as cells that are rogue and have replicated, but the body has put systems in place for cells to replicate and then stop. And those that stop are destroyed. And those that are destroyed through a process of apoptosis leave room for more cells to be produced. So cancer is when the body, for whatever reason, outstrips, outgrows that system that has been put in place to
Mhm.
prevent the cells from growing out of order. I
Mhm.
must say that everyone actually has cancer. It's
Wow.
not a rare thing. We all have cancer. On a daily basis, there are cancer cells. There are cells that are replicating to some degree in your body, but because of one's health,
Mm.
the factors that have been put in place to stop those replications are working, and at balance, they're working uh, at a higher level than the cell's ability to kind of to not be stopped.
Wow.
So I hope that explains it a bit. Sometimes the explanation gets a bit muckier.
So, what would you say are some of the symptoms of prostate cancer?
That's the
Because
problem.
I
That's
think
the
this is
problem.
I think
Yeah,
this is a question that is lingering in a lot of men mind
yeah.
now.
So ideally, the best cancers to have are the ones that would give you symptoms on day one,
Mhm.
and the symptoms are kind of striking. So you go to the physician and you are screened, and then the cancer is identified, and you can very easily remove it with a shot of some medication, and the medication has no side effects. Unfortunately, that stepwise process of the ideal doesn't really and truly exist.
Mm.
Prostate cancer is fallen into that same vein where we have an unfortunate circumstance in which you can actually have prostatic cancer for some years and not be aware that you have it
Wow.
because there's very little symptomatology.
Wow.
Um, so what has been put in place is a system of what we call screening. Screening. Screening works very well in that those that participate in it are able to be reviewed to to see if, in fact, they have early symptoms or uh, 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 or findings of cancer, and
Mm.
then the process begins. So
Good.
the fact is that most men don't know. So for us, the red line is actually our age or a strong family history,
Mhm.
and a couple of other things that we'll probably get to later on in the discussion. For those that do have symptoms, they usually present as urinary symptoms because of where it is. It's difficulty with urination or frequency, meaning they're urinating more than they would want to,
Mhm.
or they have an inability to actually hold the urine. Like after you would have completed, the flow is dribbling,
Mhm.
and it's not flowing the way it did before previously. And then there at times there's some sexual issues also.
Wow.
Those are very, I would not say to anyone, wait for these symptoms before you come for review. The leading things that I'd like the audience to remember is your age.
Mm.
Then, secondly, the second pillar is your family history.
Mhm.
The third pillar is your present health status, right? Those three things, particularly. If you have symptoms, that is a driving force. But those three pillars are the things that all men listening and gentle ladies that are listening to look out for with respect to pushing their loved ones to having the initial workup.
Good stuff. You said something to me behind the stage earlier, and
Yes.
you said that you've never seen a healthy person that has this issue of prostate cancer. Can you elaborate a little on that?
Well, in my line of work, I've probably seen about 110,000 people,
Wow.
and that includes people of all races and ages and sizes. The urologists see specifically men. And so, of course, I'm not a urologist per se. That is someone who only sees patients with prostate issues.
Mm.
So I'm certain there are urologists who may say, well, I have seen one or two. But I will tell you, it is very rare. And I personally, having seen at least 40 to 50,000 males, and of that number, probably 10,000 of them had some sort of family history of cancer or cancer itself. Um, Never seen a singular person that was in optimal health with prostate cancer, a male, that is.
Wow. Now, there's the next question I know that is lingering in a lot of persons' mind and those who are watching. Now, why is it, this is what I've heard and I've seen, because the gentleman who I said had a discussion with me some weeks ago, why is it predominantly targeted in the black race or those of color? Is that a true statement or?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's a preponderance, it's something that we do in medicine called epidemiology, which speaks to all of those questions about who has the disease, whether it's male or female, what is the socioeconomic status, whether or not they are of Jewish descent, Ashkenazi descent, Ashkenazi, which is Jewish, of African descent, Indian, or Caucasian descent. And it allows us to risk stratify our clients, our people, based on the likelihood of previous our previous experiences, in that we've measured persons of a certain background or orientation has an increased likelihood or preponderance to get the disease.
Wow.
In our case, the statistics speaks specifically to persons that are of African descent, having an increased likelihood, an increased sensitivity. There being an assumption that at some point it's likely that they would have cancer. To your question, which was why, there's a lot of literature out there speaking to it, but there's no specific solid frame of thought that says this is exactly why. So we don't actually know. Here are some of the thoughts that we have, though. Socioeconomic status, one of them, meaning there are some persons that actually screen, but they screen late. If you're in a community of persons that screen early and catch the disease early, versus a community that usually does not screen, the level of cancer in that community and the morbidity and mortality of cancer in that community, i.e. the African American community or the community that is of African descent, would be much higher than in a community, per se, the Caucasian community, where they would screen earlier and they have the resources for the most part to do so. So one of the first pillars of why is because of finances and social structure and understanding. Another one is that there appears to be some genetic predisposition, which the literature says it amounts to probably about 15%, if I'm not mistaken. I'll review it at some point, but it's a very small number. And then there's a familial predisposition. And if I were pressed to answer the question of whether or not persons of African descent have a higher familial and genetic predisposition, I would answer yes. Because there are some genes that are associated with it that, as you know, are very high in the Bahamas, called BRCA1 and BRCA2. And that is not in females. In the Bahamas, we are stricken with cancer at very, very high rates, a high incident rate. And incidence essentially means the number of people that are getting it over a period of time, the new persons that are being found to have that disease. And then there's prevalence, and that amounts to the amount of persons who have already had it and are being presently treated. our incidence and prevalence of cancer of all types in the Bahamas are through the roof, proportionate to the number of people that we have, including prostate cancer. And our nation is probably 75% of a darker hue. So, there's an issue of are we catching it early? There's an issue of genetic predisposition. And then finally, there's an issue of lifestyle and dieting, lifestyle changes. So, I think it's an argument that's going to continue. I don't think we'll ever come to a solid, definitive answer. But I think when we bring all three of those pillars together, we come up with some sort of an answer.
That's so true. Okay, let's move on, because we have a number of things to address this afternoon. And this is one I think too is lingering in the male mind on a consistent level. What happens during a prostate examination? I got a test done some months. Mind you, this question always comes up, doctor. I got an examination done some few months ago, like I said earlier, and it was not done through the traditional way, in the traditional way.
Okay.
Normally, when folks hear that, they always think about an insertion in the rectum area.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a traditional way or whatever they did. They did blood tests when I went for my prostate examination. They just did a simple blood test, and they were able to determine the status of my prostate.
Right.
I don't know if that's the first stage, or if there is something else that they see in the blood test. They would probably go in physically. Can you explain that to me a little?
Okay. And if I may backtrack just for 30 seconds to the question of why, I wanted to give another statistic to help with, as it is coming to memory, to help with the fact that there is a preponderance of a higher preponderance of cancer, prostatic cancer, in the community of African descent as opposed to the Caucasian. It's 46% comparatively to 26% in the African versus Caucasian. So 46 African, 26 Caucasian. And one of the reasons probably why is this topic that you're speaking to now. The old school way of doing it, and I'll use the term old school, and so that everybody can understand, is to actually do what we call a digital rectal examination. And we've seen it on television on so many occasions. And we may be actually answering the question of why right now, because you see the doctor on TV pulling his glove and it's flicking, and he says, "Are you ready for this exam?" And no, I'm not ready for the exam. I'm not ready for that exam. And I think television has done, using it from a perspective of levity, television has done a disservice to our men, to make them feel as though, listen, I ain't going in for that. Matter of fact, I ain't going in at all. Right? I ain't going in at all. If that's what's going to happen to me, why would any man in his right mind willingly go in to have that done? What we've discovered in the last couple of years is there's a way to have your prostate checked that is just as specific and sensitive as the rectal examination. So the digital rectal examination, and digit refers to your fingers, is an examination that I'll speak to now. So that examination is the process of that examination is where the male is positioned and the doctor uses the digit or his finger to pass through the rectal area and locate the prostate, which is immediately after you get inside, and you can feel it to see its size, its shape, whether or not there are any irregularities or anything of concern. So that is how it was done previously. What we know now, and we have been doing it for the last, I want to say 10 years. So you late. We've been doing it for the last 10 years, whereby we the prostate releases a specific antigen, right? And we call it a prostatic specific antigen, PSA.
Mhm.
You probably heard the PSAs about PSA.
Mhm.
They should have been all over the television by now. And what that essentially is a protein that is released in really high levels if there's some questions or concerns. Um, Not to get into the nitty gritty of the science, but the numbers are between zero point 0.1 and 4.0.
Mhm.
And once you are within that range, comfortably in that range, bloods can be taken. We can pick up the PSA in your blood, and they're sent to a lab, and the chemistry lab processes them, and we get the results back in 1 or 2 days without having to do the digital rectal examination.
Mhm.
The key point here is that the sensitivity and the specificity of the blood examination is just as high, and to some degree, even higher than that of the digital rectal examination.
Wow. So you take a blood sample of the prostate and send it to the lab.
Absolutely. You take a blood sample of the prostatic specific antigen of the blood, and they analyze it to pick up the prostatic specific antigen. And based on its number, if it's less than 4, usually that's a very comfortable number based on your age, and that's it. No
Mm.
need for a digital rectal examination. Now,
Wow.
that's not to say you won't need for it or an individual, because it's on the individual basis, right? There are some individuals that may, in fact, need to have that examination under certain circumstances. But generally speaking, nowadays, hear me, men, when you're going in to have your what you would call physical yearly general yearly checkup, no need to worry. The prostatic examination is no longer an invasive procedure.
Mm.
All the nurse and or team has to do is take your bloods, and we will get the results very shortly.
I think that's what was done in my case a few months ago.
That's exactly what was done.
I had a blood test, and they were able to determine the health of my prostate based on the blood test. So
I can imagine that felt real good as opposed to having the
100%. I came home. I came home rejoicing, jumping up, happy.
see, the anticipation of the test itself is one of the reasons why men don't go.
That's right. You're right. So tell me, if I were to go, let's give just a simple example here. If I was to go to the doctor for regular examination, and he discovered that my prostate, there is a problem with my prostate, I would go to, I guess, in some cases, a specialist. You could direct me on this question. And what happens if they do discover that my prostate is cancerous? How is a basic, I think they use the word biopsy, done to remove that cancerous tumor, or in some cases, that prostate?
Right. So if again, if I may, I kind of want to go in order so that the persons who are listening don't get lost. The
Yeah.
first thing is actually screening. Screening. And
Hmm.
screening is defined as actually the investigation that is undertaken in individuals that are asymptomatic,
Hmm.
but have uh, but have been recognized to be at a certain risk of having that disease based on um, certain factors. In
Hmm.
the case of prostatic cancer, the first thing is you have to be a male. And then, secondly, what we know is that your age is very important. In our community, we usually offer the screening, which is the prostatic specific antigen, the PSA testing, around 40, 45 years old.
Hmm.
Some of the literature suggests around 50 plus. But as I said, in our community, we have a higher preponderance of incidence of it. Once the physician sees you, he then would investigate by doing a full history on your family to see what your family history is, to decide on whether or not there is a genetic or familial likelihood, and then finally talking about lifestyle and things of that nature. Then the screening is done, the results come back, and out of the 4, the results may be higher and worrisome to the physician. With that said, the investigation begins. So the next step now is the investigations. With the investigations, the important thing is that we investigate it in such a way whereby we're not taking or causing any harm, but we are able to identify with pretty good sensitivity and specificity the areas where there may be a prostatic lesion. So usually today, what is done is an MRI of the prostate. Now, it is possible to do an ultrasound, but my suggestion and a lot of the urologists and the diagnosticians, along with the radiologists, immediately go to the MRI. And the reason why that is because the prostate is an organ that may have cancerous tumors in 2 or 3 areas. If you biopsy the prostate and you miss those areas where the cancerous tumor resides, you will get what we call a false negative.
Wow.
What that means is that the test comes out as negative. The test comes out as negative, but in fact it is positive, because although the physician would have done his part in biopsying 6 areas plus, he still quite possibly could have missed the areas that is cancerous.
Wow.
So the investigation to determine if this elevated PSA of 7, 10, 12, 40, 100 is of significance to suggest prostatic cancer, it's very important that it is one that will pick up and be able to identify using a grid exactly where the suspected lesions are.
Wow.
Let me go back. Before that is done, usually, if there's a suggestion of it, the elevated prostatic levels are treated, if likely, if the physician thinks it's likely, they can be treated they can be caused by a couple of other things other than prostatic cancer. So the fact that you have an elevated PSA does not automatically mean cancer. Infections of the prostate can cause it. So sometimes you just get antibiotics and have the test redone.
Wow.
And in some instances, persons could have had a previous digital rectal examination for some other reason. And that interferes with the morphology and the anatomy, and it causes the PSA to be elevated. And as a result, you get a false positive. And then in some people, there's just some other reasons why it happens. So we tend to be very cautious, take a really good history, and then we send them to have their investigation if necessary. So the first thing is an MRI. Once an MRI is done, then the urologist uses the MRI to specifically identify and to target those lesions for a biopsy. And the biopsy then is sent off to the labs for investigation and determination of whether they're prostatic or non-prostatic cancer.
So let me see if we can bring some clarity to this, in particular for our watching audience here. So you're saying that they will cut off a section or a small area?
The word cut off we never use.
Okay.
So it's not cut off. It's actually a biopsy. So what it is actually just a pinch. It's I guess the best way to say it is a pinch, because cut off sounds really like no, we ain't cutting it
Dramatic,
off.
right?
Right. It's a biopsy. It's a very small, strategically directed instrumentation in order to remove a small piece of it and to get a deep part of its core so that we can determine whether it's cancerous or not. So we're not removing the prostate at all.
Okay. So now here is the next question. And this is what a question what I think too is lingering in a lot of male mind.
Yes.
What does it mean when you say that it's too late now? We cannot do nothing to fight this cancer any longer. Now, what
Yeah.
would you say? What would you say is that stage when you can say that really and truthfully it's too late now? There's nothing we can do as a physician.
Oh, as a physician, because we are believers, so I don't know what too late means. Um, that's a loaded question, right? So too late from a physician's perspective means that there's complete metastases and you are at the highest Gleason score, which is a score to determine how poorly differentiated the cancer is. And cancers that are well differentiated do very well. Those that are poorly differentiated means usually suggest that they're not going to do well. And the cancer has spread from the prostate to the pelvis, from the pelvis to the rest of the abdomen, to the rest of the body.
Oh
And
wow.
chemo and radiotherapy is really just to make the patient comfortable. While chemo and radiotherapy would have already been offered, you may have had a complete prostate removal, prostatectomy, and it has not yielded the results that we would have wanted it to be yielded. And there's nothing else within the armamentarium of the physicians to do. So it's really just what some people call comfort care. What I will say, though, is the good news is that prostatic cancer is what we call the smoldering disease, generally speaking. What that means is that when when you do get prostate cancer, it's not the type of cancer that usually is very aggressive and just runs through your system.
Mm.
So it takes a while for it to develop. Again, a push for early screening, because the earlier you screen, the earlier you go in for an appropriate screen, it's more highly likely that you're going to get, even if it's positive, get good results.
Wow.
Because there's a lot of things that can be done in the interim. We really don't want men to get to the point where they have to hear the doctor say there's nothing more you can do. Right? Because you don't have to. That's somebody who's in their 60s and who has prostate cancer. It's a Gleason. The Gleason score, I believe, goes up to six or seven. At its highest level, the prostate cancer is poorly undifferentiated, meaning it's not going to do well. It's spread throughout the body, and the doctor says, "Well, we will make you comfortable, but there's nothing else we can do."
Wow. I don't think any of us want to hear those words.
No.
Okay, there is a next question. I know that you have heard this a lot, and I know you're going to let you elaborate some more on that particular area there we just discussed. But there is a next question I know that's always lingering in the male's mind. Does this prostate cancer, or is it associated with erectile dysfunction?
That's a great question. And maybe that's something that I personally need to review. I don't recall in any of the literature that I've read as a junior doctor, as a medical student, or even today, and I may have just missed it, that it does. Now, what I can say is some of the treatment protocols can lead to it, and we do have numbers to speak to what happens if you have the procedure to remove your prostate. In the event that you do have localized prostate cancer, that can cause erectile dysfunction. And the erectile dysfunction that that we've identified is associated with the level of potency that one would have, or the desire for sexual engagement. It actually is very low. The younger you are, the lower the likelihood of you having that problem. After having the prostate removed, and the number goes up based on your age. So every decade, the number increases by a certain amount.
So it has a lot to do with more age than really the procedure itself.
So erectile dysfunction has a lot to do with the vasculature, the health of that individual's blood vessels, particularly the arteries and the veins, particularly the arteries. If the blood vessels are not healthy, both arteries and veins, it leads to erectile dysfunction. That's one of the things. I suspect that prostatic cancer can cause it, but it is not high up on top of the list to say, if I get cancer, I'm going to have the erectile dysfunction. There's a lot of other things that we have to deal with before we get to prostatic cancer as a cause of erectile dysfunction.
Okay, so let's look at it now. We have spoken about what happens when you have prostate cancer. We talk about the procedure, what the doctor does to be able to identify and be able to trace it and be able to diagnose it and be able to treat it. We spoke about all that. Now let's look at the preventive measures. Now, is there something the male can do? I know it has all to do. You and I were talking earlier behind the stage about the diet and the lifestyle, and is there something that we can put in our diet for better prostate health, or can you elaborate a little on that for us, please?
Right. So before I go there, I'll touch a little bit more on the treatment so everybody understands the protocol. So the treatment includes treatment which would deal with hormonal therapy, which would be hormones to slow down the growth of the prostate, and that gets kind of deep. It's called androgen deprivation therapy. And then there are other therapies, which would be surgical resection of the prostate that we talked about. So if the cancer is just in the prostate itself, there's an indication to just resect and to remove the prostate. And the studies have shown us that up to 70% of the persons that have it done do very well. And recurrence of prostatic cancer in persons that have the resection is not particularly high. And then, of course, there's the radiation, which again is for directed therapy for prostatic cancer that is just in the prostate. And that is with external radiation, conventional radiation approaches. And it is a prescribed dose that's delivered directly to the prostate itself. And then, of course, there's the prevention. So we talked about the radiation, the hormonal, the surgical, and I'm certain there's one or two other things that's there, but just broadly, then there's the prevention. They say an ounce of prevention is better than what's the rest of it? An ounce of prevention is better than, I guess, a mountain of cure or something like that. But when you are considering that you are a male and you are of a certain race or ethnicity, and there's a likelihood that you would get or could get prostate cancer, it's best that you try to do everything within your power to prevent it. There are some studies, and again, the literature is up and down in this, and meaning what I mean by that is that you go to some literature that says there's probably not a likelihood of change with it, and then some literature that actually suggests that there may be some slight changes, benefits to it. I go with the benefits because, again, like I said, I've never seen anyone that is very healthy that has developed prostate cancer and died from it. So the best thing one would to do is to look into preventing. What is prevention? Prevention, from your perspective, is to really train the body to be as healthy as possible. Like we spoke of a little earlier, the body essentially is a computer. And the way that we get computers to operate, we put programs into them. And programs are essentially a sophisticated string of pieces of information, zeros and ones, that gives the computer instructions to lay out and to perform a certain way and to loop, to stop, to whatever. The body works exactly the same way. And the information that we put in the body is pretty simple. It's foods.
Mm.
So as a physician, it is my responsibility, and it's a crucial part of what I do, crucial element of what I do, is to layer the experience, to stack the experience in the corner of our patients and of our clients by doing everything within our power and guiding them through that process of eliminating the risk of having things like prostate cancer. And the way that we do that is by guiding them through the whole process of programming your body. And that's with foods. Two types of foods: foods that you should eat, and then there are foods that you shouldn't eat, right? And I mean, there's a long list of things, and it goes in depth. And I think for the most part, persons should actually speak with their physicians. But generally speaking, if I were to be asked the question, and I suspect the next question is going to be that, so I'll jump to it before you even ask it. What are the things? A couple of the things that I would tell you to stay away from is, number one is sugar. Sugar. Okay. Now, sugar is what we call starch, and there are a lot of names for sugar. You know, I don't know. Do you know any names for sugar?
I saw somebody had passed me some months ago. I think it was a flyer, 100 names given.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish you had it now, because I probably know like 10 or 12 of them. I didn't know there were 100, but there are many, many names for sugar.
Yep.
And what needs to be discussed is, why are there so many names for sugar? Why do you think there's so many names for sugar?
They're trying to keep it undercover.
Yeah.
Incognito.
Incognito, right? There are many, like you're saying 100. I know about 10 or 12. So you have what we call sugar, and you have glucose, fructose, maltose, galactose, xylose.
Wow.
It goes on and on, right? And then a lot of the chemicals that you see that have 14 letters in their name on the back of your foods, the majority of them have sugar bases to them.
Wow.
So essentially, it is impossible for you to stay away from sugar with the Western diet that we eat. Right? But the most important thing for you to do from a prevention perspective is avoid sugars and carbohydrates.
Wow.
That's one key. The next key is flour.
Really?
Flours. Yeah. Flour. The grains that are produced on this side of the planet are not similar or are dissimilar from those that are produced on the other side of the planet, where the husks are removed. And so we're getting what we are getting is the carbohydrates, as opposed to what they're getting, which is part of it is protein and carbohydrates. So the mixture is better for theirs than for ours.
Wow.
So when they break down those grains into byproducts or into products of what we're using, and one of the things we call is flour, it is very toxic to our system. And I know there probably are some people that are like, oh my goodness. But yes.
All the pastries and breads and stuff that they eat on a regular basis, it's kind of depressing to some people.
You said it, I didn't. I didn't want to say it.
Even some of the folks watching this program tonight, is discouraging to some of them.
Yeah. It's very discouraging, but it will save your life.
That's the truth.
Okay, it will save your life. And here's what I say to my people: the cost of prostatic cancer, and I actually looked it up today for this presentation, because sometimes people hear money better than they hear doctors running on and rambling.
Mhm.
The cost of prostatic cancer in the Western world, and when we say the Western, that means it's predominantly led by the United States, is anywhere from, I looked it up today and I've already forgotten it, it's somewhere around 20 something $1,000 for the initial therapy if you have cancer, for all of the investigations and things of that nature. And it goes up a little bit north of $100,000.
Wow.
That's very expensive. It's
Yes,
a
it
lot of money. So now you, with prostatic cancer, you have to make your health the priority of your home,
Mm.
and have to balance paying regular bills that are essential, with, am I going to be healthy or not?
Mm.
To continue to be the father in the home, to continue to go out to make revenue so that I can take care of my family. So something has to give.
That's right.
When you weigh that cost against the whole thing of, all I need to do is to try to remain as healthy as possible and screen and visit my physician, that's a cheap price. That's an inexpensive price. That's a small price to pay. So yes, flour. Stay away from the pastries.
Anything else, Doc? Because even myself feeling some kind of way when you. And I'm sure a number of persons here who would be honest with themselves, who have the sweet tooth, will feel very depressed at this moment.
Absolutely. Well, we are addicted to sugar. And I know that's a bold statement. It's very rarely heard. But, we are addicted to sugar. And usually sugar comes packaged in what? Flour.
Mm.
So everything about what we do, everything about our diet is laced in these toxins that are designed to make us chronically ill.
Wow.
And if you want to get a little deeper in it, I know you asked for anything else, so I'll try to be as soft as possible, but tell you the truth. There is a massive system that's designed because the system makes money.
Wow.
Healthy people don't make this system money.
That's right.
So if you are healthy, you're not going to make this system any revenue,
Mm.
right? And so it's important for you to understand that you are actually, whether you know it or not, you are being targeted.
Mm.
You and your kids and your wife are being targeted.
Wow.
And the goal of that target is to keep you underneath their thumb by keeping you unhealthy.
Mm.
The government can control a dumbed down, unhealthy population.
Wow. That's a powerful statement, Doc.
The pastor can manipulate a dumbed down, unhealthy population.
Mm.
No ruler that wants to have a dictatorial rulership, a complete authority over his people, seeks to educate and create an environment of health in that community.
Wow.
So until we wake up, we will continue to believe the lie. Everything in the food store is targeted against you to make you sick. It's
Wow.
not a mistake,
Wow.
because if you're addicted to sugar and I make you something that doesn't have sugar in it, but Jonathan at his store makes you products that do have sugar, my business model within 4 weeks, 4 months will fail, and he goes on to be a millionaire. So when I open my next business model, sugar it is. Sugar it is. So our culture is based on sugar. Have you ever seen the television shows where the police are walking out of a donut shop?
We see that a lot.
Or there's a homicide movie and the police are walking out of a shop and it doesn't really and truly have a name on it, but there's a cup in their hand, and around the cup there's a brown package, a brown cardboard covering. They constantly do that. Do you know what that brown cardboard covered cup means to us?
Mhm.
It's a certain store that sells coffee that has those, and I won't call the name or the names, but it is a subliminal message sent to your mind to
Mhm.
tell you that if you want to be like them, you'll do what they do. So you'll engage in that lifestyle.
That's right.
The commercials in the beginning said a healthy breakfast will get you going. And what's a healthy breakfast to them? Cereal.
Wow.
If I say to you soda, what was the first thing you thought?
Well, liquid, something that we drink on a regular basis.
Okay, which soda did you see?
Coke soda.
Okay, I didn't say it, you did. If you said to me soda, I'd see that Coke soda.
The most famous one.
Do you know why? Because they put that thought into our heads.
That's
Have a
right.
Coke and a smile.
Yeah. While you're dying.
While you're dying. So let's talk about soda and connect it to prostate. You ready?
Let's go.
How many teaspoons of sugar do you put in your coffee in the morning?
Well, I have acquired the taste to drink the coffee now without sugar.
So let's pretend that it's back in the day where you did put sugar in your coffee.
2 teaspoons of coffee, 2 teaspoons of sugar. And I think
sorry, and is that pretty sweet? Was that pretty sweet? Was it pretty good?
yes.
Okay, great. Good. How many teaspoons of sugar? Because how many teaspoons of sugar do you think is in a container of coffee?
Maybe 4 to 6 teaspoons.
4 to 6, which is fair. So if you put 4 to 6 teaspoons of sugar in your coffee, it'll be pretty sweet. Would you believe me if I told you there were 12 to 16 teaspoons of sugar in a serving of Coca-Cola? So every time you drink a Coke, you are drinking 12 to 16 teaspoons of sugar.
Wow.
That's not Coke, because I don't mean to target them. It's sodas. So you are being targeted. Even the drinks that say 100% pure, check the back to see how much carbohydrates and sugar is in them. But I'm trying my best, Doc. I'm doing everything you say. I'm eating all the pure stuff. I'm drinking all the pure stuff, and I'm still unhealthy because the system is layered and stacked against you.
Wow.
So if you are taking in significant amount of sugars and significant amount of simple carbohydrates, significant amount of flour, you are going to destroy your vascular system, which will lead to an increased preponderance and likelihood of you having cancer.
Wow.
One of the cancers that only men have is prostate cancer. So do you see how they connect? They connect very easily, very well. So as a physician, I would have you to come in at 40, 45. And rather than just doing your PSAs, we're going to talk about how to get you healthy, to prevent you from ever having cancer. And the best way to do that is to reprogram your system.
Wow. Wow. So tell me, seeing that you reached to that point now, we're talking about prevention now. Tell me, how often should a male visit his physician to get a checkup? Not only a general checkup, because I think you would advise them at least once or twice a year, but to check their prostate.
Well, that's once per year for the prostate. And again, it's over the age of 40, 45. Some of the other literature says 50 to 55. But I usually suggest around the age of 45 or so, particularly with strong family history. If you're in a community that the preponderance or the likelihood of having it is pretty high, in a community that has a high level of a BRCA1, BRCA2. And by the way, those who are listening, BRCA1 is a particular gene that persons who have it develop cancers at an extraordinarily high rate or incidence compared to other people. And so there's a couple of factors that go into it, but once per year, if your prostate levels are high after you would have been reviewed by the physician, then he or she would decide on how often they need to see you, what further investigations need to be done. And then hopefully you're doing well and you're guided through, again, lifestyle changes to get you on a path where your body's immune system is protecting itself. It's not too high, it's not too low, it's perfectly balanced. And you're able to actually create a perfect system within the ecosystem of your organs with proper dieting, eating, sleep, and lifestyle.
Very well, very well. So we have discussed a number of areas here this afternoon. So let's try and sum it up. In a nutshell, can you just give us some information, perhaps maybe what we didn't discuss as it relates to the prostate area?
Yeah, I think we went over a lot of stuff. A lot of the information is kind of deep, and I think it's something that we don't want to kind of burden individuals with. But if I were to just sum it up in summary, prostatic cancer is nothing to worry about if you are going to review with your physician early. And early is in the early to mid 40s for a male. Prostatic cancer is found in males only. And early prevention is the key. Early prevention is the key. So that is early screening and early lifestyle changes. Early means right now, because you may be 65, don't have prostate cancer, and you're concerned about it because you do remember a granduncle had it. You can start right now. So there are essentially very little symptoms in prostate cancer from the perspective of everyone having the symptoms. Not that there are not symptoms, but not everyone has the symptoms. So persons usually find that they have high levels of a PSA on screening. And so you come to the clinic, you have your bloods done, the doctor examines you, does a clinical examination, does your PSA, and if in fact you do have elevated PSAs, there's imaging investigations that are then done. If you're found to have prostatic cancer, a biopsy is then taken, and you are given a score about the level of prostatic cancer that you're at, based on the morphology of the prostate. And then further investigations as needed are done. Then the prostatic cancer itself is treated in a couple of ways. If the prostate is relegated or only in the prostate, if the cancer, is only in the prostate itself, there's ways to treat that versus it being metastasized to the rest of the body. And it's very costly. And so my push has always been early treatment, early screening, and prevention.
Well done, well done. We even you and I, even behind the stage, we were discussing how prevention is so important.
It's crucial.
And most of the problems that we have, most of the health problem that we face, it can be avoided if we would get early, like you said, early screening, early diagnosing, and basically early tests to detect the magnitude of these situations. And I want to just specially thank you for this informing, very powerful session. Which we had so much information, and guess what? You and I were talking about this earlier. This is what gives us the potential to make our lives better. Information.
Absolutely.
This is what brings change and transformation. We were talking about how a lot of folks today, they are suffering because of the lack of knowledge. I said earlier,
Yes.
even the Bible reminds us that we are destroyed for the lack of knowledge, not for not going to church, not for not shouting, not for not falling on the ground, but because of what we don't know.
Yeah, and every time people say that it provokes the thought, which was my response to you earlier, I did years of medical school, and there was not one day where I had a shouting good time.
Wow, that blew me away.
But it makes me wonder as to why our philosophy as pastors, as I am a pastor, and I've been so since I was in my early to mid 20s, why we as pastors focus so much on having an experience rather than having a depth of information delivered to our people, and creating an environment where it is expected to be students of the gospel, PhDs, learning the scripture, knowing the word, and preparing for it. Because like we discussed earlier, he didn't say put on your shout. He didn't say he didn't say any of those things. He said put on the whole armor.
That's right.
Yeah, and anyone who's putting on an armor is what? A soldier.
Yep.
So I think philosophically we're looking at it incorrectly, and this what you're doing here at Man Up Network is such a tremendous blessing to those that are listening, and to those who will be listening in the future, because it doesn't have any frills. We're not really and truly trying to do anything else but empower men and women, because if you empower men, you're empowering women.
That's right.
If you empower men, you empower homes, and the head of the home is the father. So if you want to save the home, save the fathers. And I know there are some who would have great issue with that statement, but it is what it is. If you want to save the home, save the fathers.
That's right.
Saving the mothers is important, but you're never going to save the homes by saving the mothers.
Because the man is the head.
You have to save the fathers. You have to save the men. And the only persons who can save men is Yahuwah himself. And he has to, and that man needs to have a father or a father figure that shows him how to be submitted to the Most High.
That's right.
That's the key. So I am grateful for what you're doing and for what your ministry is doing, the effects that it is having on the men in our communities. You're in Canada, but you're still in the Bahamas, and now you're all over the place. People can watch you from wherever you are. So it's a pleasure to have been here with you this evening, and to be able to share and to be a part of the catalog of information that will continue to be broadcast to protect the family by starting with the male man himself.
I want to thank you too, Doctor, for coming on and joining with us the second time. And once again, this session that you have come on, this platform that you have joined us with, have been very informative. And I know even those that would come and watch this after it had already been recorded will be blessed because of the amount of information that was shared here tonight. And we have to bring you on again. I think I was thinking just now, there's so many topics that can help us as men. And as you said earlier, not only the men, we have some ladies, even in our comment section, I see a number of ladies commenting. So this is a general topic, and even overall health is a general topic. It is not just targeted to the male figure, female as well. So there's so much to discuss. But however, for tonight, this was our particular topic, the prostate cancer and the status of it and how to, we cover preventive measures, we cover what is prostate cancer, what is the examination, and we even talk about the elephant in the room, erectile dysfunction, that a lot of men are afraid of to talk about. But once again, Dr. Kalma, I appreciate you, you know that, and I want to let you give my regard to your family, your wife, and I want to say from Man Up Networking Session, we love you. And we look forward to other informative discussions just like this one. And for those of you who are listening, audience, and those who are watching live and commenting, God bless all of you tonight. Of course, Man Up Networking Session will not be where it is today without our audience who come and watch every time we're on. We have a number of persons that are faithful. So
Amen.
God, all of you tonight. Before we go, I want you to give some information about yourself and what you're doing in the islands. I know you started to tell me earlier before we went on live. Let them know about your office and your practices, and you started to open up to me exactly what you and a number of persons are doing there in the islands.
Yeah, well, I'm thank you so much again, and I do appreciate your sentiments. I am one of the physicians at Bahamas Wellness. It's a fledgling company that is focused on wellness and fundamentally on disease, not maintenance, but disease reversal. And essentially, what that means is when you come to our office or our facility, we are proud to boast that we are going to offer you the highest standards of care, and you're going to have the best experience that you would have had. And our focus is very simple: to get you healthy. We are located here in Eleuthera and in Nassau, and we have our main flagship facility in Palmetto Point, which we are looking to expand, and we have a number of specialist services that we're offering. An emergency room, we are the emergency room for Eleuthera. So whenever there's an emergency, a heart attack, a stroke, anything of that nature, people know where they can come, and they do come. And we find that as a result of our services, a lot of our guests are very comfortable with coming back and returning to the islands, and some of them have even decided to purchase homes and to retire because they know they're going to get that level of care. So our main facility, which again is our flagship, is in Palmetto Point, and that is an extraordinary place to be. We have a facility in Lower Bog and one facility in Spanish Wells, and we also have a facility in Nassau, right up the street from Doctors Hospital. So we are doing very, very well from the perspective of achieving our goals. People are our center. Our community is our center. We're focusing on taking care of our community. Our goal is to get Eleuthera healthy and then move to the next island. That's our goal, is to get Eleuthera healthy. And we offer services. We cover the full spectrum of services. And I personally focus on what most would call something called functional medicine, which focuses specifically on disease reversal, not so much disease maintenance. The majority of physicians today still operate in the old regime, which is to just maintain the disease. We are not interested in managing diseases. We do manage disease, but our focus is to reverse them. Wouldn't it be good to not have diabetes any longer, or hypertension any longer, or that obesity that's been plaguing you? So that's what we're focusing on. So that's a little bit about us. We were started about 5 years ago. Dr. Arlington Lightburn had the vision, and I personally joined on 2 years later, and we, with a tremendous team of people, have through Yahuwah's instruction and guidance, submitted ourselves to the vision, and I believe it is his work to get Bahamas Wellness to the place where it is today, where we are known as the emergency room of Eleuthera, the place to go if you're looking for disease reversal. And we are looking to be to expand to the place where people are going to come from all over to come and see us. because we're making differences in people's lives.
What a great vision, Doc. Can you tell those who are watching where they can find you, even on social media, in the event that they have a question even after this session is up? We would have normally have a session for questions, but because of the sake of time, can you tell them where they can find you? And after you have done so, can you just pray for those who are joining us this afternoon and those who will watch this informative session?
Okay, so I needed my daughter to help me answer that question. I I wouldn't really. I'm not as savvy as you are, my brother. But you go to Instagram or Facebook, and it's pretty simple. It's Instagram and Facebook at Bahamas Wellness, and we have a number of pages up on either one of those. And there's someone monitoring the page. We have a team that monitors the pages. And if you are in the Bahamas and or in Eleuthera, it's very easy to get in contact with myself or any of our physicians. I can give you a phone number directly to call us. So if you are international, it's 242 first number. That's the area code. And then the number is 332-0224. Area code 242-332-0224. And then there is a backup number for Nassau, which is the same area code, 322-2226, to make it very easy. So that's how you get in contact with us. And I'll put it on the screen. Hopefully you can see it.
I put the number up. And
you put the number up, and I'm going to put so you can, if you can't see it, that's fine. Let's see how this works. That's our logo or insignia, so you'll know when you get to us. That's how we look, and we have a number of specialist services. So that's the logo for Bahamas Wellness. When you see that, you'll know that it is us. And thank you again, my brother. And I am in awe of what the Lord is doing in our lives, and I am determined to make a difference. So thank you again for the invitation. And I think you said you wanted me to pray us out.
Yes.
Okay. Father, we thank you and praise you for this time. We are so grateful to be allowed to be in your presence. Where your spirit is, there is liberty. And you said in your word, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And then you taught us to go into all of the world and preach and teach the good news, the gospel, baptized in the name of the Father and the Son, and in the name of the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever you had commanded us. And lo, you would be with us always, even unto the end of the world. So we thank you for those that have decided to take up the mantle and run with it, to run with the assignment. We thank you for this Man Up Network with Pastor Bastian. We give you praise for those that are a part of it. We thank you for his beautiful wife and his sons and his daughters, his children. We thank you for his spiritual children. We thank you for those that follow him. We pray for him that he continues to stay within your graces and to know you even the more. Now bless those that are in the earshot of what we are saying. We pray, oh God, that you rest upon them, even as they hear our voice, a spirit that yearns for you. Because although we spoke of physical health today, our goal and our true focus is spiritual health, because eternity is what we are after. We thank you that you have selected us and elected us for that eternity with you. You have decided and you've chosen us to make it so that we can be considered your sons and daughters, which guarantees us eternity with you. So we give you praise, we give you glory, and we give you honor for it now. For thine is the kingdom. Glory to your name, the power and the glory forever and ever. And all of Yahuwah's people said, amen and amen.
Amen and amen. Good night to all of you. Please do enjoy your weekend and look forward to seeing all of you on another Man Up session soon. in the future. God bless you. Have a great night, everybody.
God bless you all.